And now, the award-winning Simply Youth Ministry Podcast with Doug Fields and friends.
Hey everybody, Doug Fields here with Matt McGill and Jana Sardi and Josh. No longer the interim high school pastor Griffin.
That is correct.
For those of you that do not read the blog, which I think everybody in the United States reads more than dodgeball.com.
Yeah.
You blogged about it, right? It's a little blog. It was
Just
cool.
a little blog.
Yeah, that's
one sentence.
You know what? That's okay. Josh has been the interim high school pastor since December, and in our campaign to make him the official high school pastor,
the campaign
had to go
is now
finally
over.
through the last sign off of Rick Warren.
It was awesome.
Because apparently my opinion meant nothing. And so Rick was in Orlando this week, and he got an email from our executive pastor saying, hey, we need to make a decision on this. It's been several months. We're not going to find anybody better. And I know you
Glenn
said search
that?
the world. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Oh, everybody loves Josh. And then
Great
I guess Matt was in the car with Rick Warren because they were at a conference in Orlando. Rick took his good buddies, Matt, the future of the church, and a couple of our church planters, and they went to Orlando.
Now the present and the future.
You're the president and the future
like
of the
youth.
church. Oh, there you go.
The church of today.
Yeah, tomorrow.
And said, hey, we're going to make Josh the guy, an official, and gather him around,
Very
Saddleback.
exciting.
We had some staff pray for him and encourage him, and
It was awesome.
And then
Great day.
And I totally got when I got home, I told Kathy, I said, did you get the email? She goes, yeah, how great is that? And Cassie goes, what? And I said, it was about Josh. What about Josh? I said, oh, he's moving. She's like, no. And she was totally laughing. I said, no, just kidding. I said, he's the new high school pastor. And she looked at me like, well, yeah, I've known that for like 6 months, so didn't really get the word
it was a
interim.
big day though. It felt great. Really humbling, awesome.
Well, you
I
have done
may or
an
may not have
awesome
cried.
job.
I heard you cried.
He
Yeah.
did cry.
I liked it. My eyes, and I went to Outback.
He cried. He
to
was
celebrate.
crying. I'm not sure if you were crying before we prayed for you.
Both.
You were definitely crying when we were done praying for you because, like, the third time we hugged, I just felt like I had to go change my shirt.
Yeah,
It was
that's a
just-
little. Yeah, but and what's interesting is Outback was a lot of fun. Took our family out. It was great, but it's not as good as I remember it. I think
Yeah.
we've made Outback.
No, when we say we mean you.
Yeah, nobody talks about Outback like
Yeah.
you do.
There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
I would still go immediately after this podcast with you there, but it wouldn't be my first choice.
Even though you already ate lunch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but here's the deal, Josh.
right.
You came from Michigan, where I'm not even sure you ever ate out when you were there.
That's
yeah,
true.
Waffle House.
And-
White Castle.
Wait.
and it
White
was like-
Castle
and
hamburgers.
It was like when you got here. We went to Outback once or twice, and you thought you had hit, Ruth's Chris or Morton
Yeah, I didn't
Steakhouse
know
or
those existed. Yeah.
And you've been talking Outback ever since. When it's fine, it's decent. I mean,
Yeah.
it's better than
But since
fast
he's
food.
been to Ruth Chris, so he should have changed his
But
vocabulary.
now it's time. It's time to upgrade.
Yeah.
So.
I
yeah.
still have a gift certificate for Riz Chris. I don't know why I haven't
You
used it yet.
Really?
do?
You know what?
Let's go for lunch right now.
I'll pay 50 cents on the dollar.
50 cents.
I'll give you 55 on the
That's a
dollar.
good one.
Yeah, I'll give you 90 cents on the dollar
Ugh.
if you pay. All right.
They're calling these guys Battle of the Bellies, by the way.
Battle of the Bellies, the live
That's-
show is calling Jana and Matt the Battle of the Bellies. That's awesome.
That's so
We have Julie
sad.
Bellies on screen.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Matt actually has a slimming shirt on today.
I don't.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Sorry.
Jana, this is our last podcast
Oh,
with
this
you.
is big news. Yes.
Forever.
No, not
Forever.
forever.
Whoa,
Not forever.
settle down.
Not forever.
Settle
Not
down.
forever.
That's crazy talk.
We actually need to have our live audience give us a little participation of how many weeks should we give Jana off of the podcast?
Yes, that's a fair.
Legitimately.
It's 6 weeks for the state of California.
Well,
They're saying
it's
6 to
6 to 8 is disability. With Jenna, I know very well, but it's different. It's different between that and the podcast because we could Skype her in.
Yeah.
We could go do the podcast at her house.
That
So
would be fun, huh?
I'm not sure how
That's
many. I mean, we'll
interesting.
still
Yeah.
continue to do the podcast without Janet, but we need to
Oh,
think through.
it's
Do we have an empty chair? Do we put something on the chair? Do we invite somebody to sit in the
Bring
chair?
in-
outcry for Jake right now.
Jake, bring
Oh,
back
yeah.
Jake.
Jake would be
Jake
awesome.
is
Would be-
90% woman.
Maybe he could bring his
Jake.
new baby too.
Yeah, they'll be having a baby too, which could pull him out.
That's
from-
great.
The Hebrew women went back to work the same day.
Did they?
They want to know if Matt can pull our dubs. If you can get him on the show.
Oh, that's a challenge.
Matt can
Whoa.
pull nothing.
If Matt can pull
That would
if Matt
be
can pull Rick Warren to the show,
Awesome.
that's
If we can
awesome.
pull the show to him, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Come on, Matt. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
Anyhow, good bit.
Yeah.
So, how long do you
Because
think? 4 weeks?
isn't Rick following you on Twitter, Matt? Just kidding. Just that you now.
Speaking of Twitter,
you're the best
should
buddy
we
of you're the best buddy of
need
Rick.
to, yeah.
should we do
Yeah,
an
what's the
update?
Twitter
on,
account?
Never said that.
the Twitter
You guys are
situation?
horrible.
Should we
Twitter
do an
situation?
update? Yeah.
Well, Andy's going to lose the bet. We
We're
got
at 7:53 as of right now.
And
Andy-
when's the-
753 as of Friday.
really it's 752 because I shouldn't count.
Yes, you should.
Yeah,
No,
you
not
should
only-
totally
Jana, here's
count.
the deal.
You-
What I
you're
found
on it?
out, Andy, I met Jason Carson, who's the youth pastor at my daughter's
Yep.
junior high school, and I was talking to him the other day at She went to football tryouts.
That
I
is
saw
so
that.
funny.
That's
She
Yeah.
hurt her arm.
Finger. She caught a pass, and the defensive back came over. She stopped her out. She shouldn't have. But anyway, she jammed her finger, and she wasn't all that excited about football.
Football anymore.
But I talked to Jason Carson, and he said something to me. He goes, "Yeah, Andy personally emailed me and asked me to be on the Twitter
way.
account."
No
So
way.
here's
So,
kind
you know.
of, but you're proving my point in this whole deal, Andy, because the point has been, over the years, you make these sweeping, exaggerating statements.
Something that you would never do to
No.
your agenda.
No. But he says,
Yeah, he probably learned that.
Oh, wow.
you know what, we don't need to go.
Oh, wow. There it
Oh,
is.
man.
I'm on the attack. I
True
don't need to be on the
confession.
defense until I get to the attack. Let me finish the attack, then I'll go on the defense. He says, you have 1,000 people following you right away, and so I just called the bluff and said, no, I won't.
I know. Brazel does make some
Well,
outrageous calls.
And the thing is,
sometimes.
753 is admirable, but in this case, it's 1,000 or it might as well be 0.
Yeah,
Right.
But here's the deal. Here's why I knew that. I mean, we sold over 753 congratulations, you're gifted books last week.
Yes.
So, but to me, it wasn't that we couldn't get people to follow. It was just that what I realized is very few people know what Twitter is. Even
I would agree
though
with that.
Right,
Our
you have to
techie,
sign up for
our
it and all
techie
that,
world
yeah.
knows it. But when I was in Dallas last weekend, I was talking to some youth workers. I said, "Do any of you Twitter?" Not a single youth worker
Yeah.
Twitter.
But
Oh,
it's
that's
like
still
it's
very
still
much-
it's making its way.
It's making
very
well,
much
we're
making
on
its
the
way.
front end.
Point A.
But he went for years trying to get me to blog, and I just have never
People
blogged.
send me direct messages every day saying how much they love following you on Twitter.
People every day.
Every single
I
day.
know,
you're
you're
gonna call
right.
your bluff
There's-
now. Hold on.
No, I'm sure people love it.
Every
Hey,
day.
That's
have you
not-
seen Twirl? Twirl's
Yeah,
pretty
Twirl's
sweet.
very cool.
Is
It's
Twirl the
about
same
it
as
wired.
Twitter?
If you were to follow people
works.
back,
It's
a
Yeah.
Twitter
you'd be
client.
done already.
Yeah, but here's
What?
the deal
If
about
you were
following
to
people
follow
back.
people
No.
If you were to go out and follow 300, I follow 200 people. All those people would follow him.
That
back,
is
I'd be done.
that is ridiculous.
But
You
then
follow
I-
200 people.
But then I have
Log
to.
in.
You have to read
Log
their
in.
stuff, though, Andy.
No,
you
you
don't have to read anything.
But people send me direct message.
Why do you
in my
get? Why,
reply,
you just want that in your inbox or on your
It doesn't go in
phone?
my inbox at all. It goes to a web application. If
Oh,
I
is that
wanna
what you
read
do?
it, I read it.
Yeah.
It doesn't interfere with anything.
I don't fully get it, but I am the Twitter. I've Twittered twice already
Yeah.
today.
You're good.
Yeah, you have slowed down a little bit though.
Yeah, that which is
Well-
affecting my numbers.
No, it's not. You said 4 or 5. I have not missed a day that was 4 or 5.
I think
Yeah, you
so.
did.
Yes,
Your
When?
first
I
day
think so.
you missed.
My first day.
Your second day, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I only did 3 Twitters today.
I think you.
I got 120 Twitters that I've already tweeted. You gotta,
Tweeted.
you guys gotta give
He's
me.
making up his own vocabulary.
You
Yeah,
No,
I heard
gotta,
my
you gotta
tweet
give me
in and I-
props that I
no, he
have
said tweet.
for being
Tweet?
being a techie guy.
You're pretty good.
I've done a pretty good
Not
job.
bad.
Decent job.
I think he could be a blogger eventually. You
Not
know
a
what you ought to
chance.
do? You ought to
Not
start
enough
writing.
youth ministry. Feel
You oughta
guilty
start
for
what?
listening.
You got to start writing. I
Well,
think
you know
could
what?
probably sell some
Here's
books.
one of the
Yeah, save it for a
questions.
book.
One of the questions that came in. It's actually this is the right time to do it. It says, "Hey, Andy and friends.
Oh.
Josh is now the high school pastor at Saddleback. Congratulations. Matt has written all of Doug's books, and Jana does all his
I have
administration.
not written all of his books.
Isn't that what you say?
No.
Well, that's what's picked up on the internet.
The perception's reality.
On
now.
the-
Matt has written all of Doug's books. Jana does all of his administration. So, Doug, what exactly do you do?
Twitter.
Twitter.
3 to 4 times a day.
That was from Joe Foltz from
I can
Kansas
think of two
City,
things.
Missouri.
Thank you, Josh.
Bitch
Yeah,
and moan.
Andy and friends.
What'd you say?
I said bitch and moan.
Oh, nice. Nice.
All
Is
right.
that a bad... Is that over the line?
No, that's
Will
fine.
that need to get?
Will that need to get edited?
You didn't
you
even
know
get
what?
a hand on your shoulder for that
Not
one.
bitch and moan.
No, you are not.
As
like
a
that at all.
verb, I think it's okay. As a noun, people might take more offense.
Well,
to
what's it like? Hey, what's going on, bitchin'? Is that bad? That's
What?
A noun.
Who says that? First off,
it. Matt
No.
does.
Ruben
Ruben
Bar?
Bar says it all the
All right.
time.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
I got a question for Matt for your much better than, more than dodgeball.
How are the hits on that, by the way?
Good. Traffic's awesome.
yeah.
This is from
Over
Tad
1,000 followers.
Tad Huffstetter. Tad Huffstetter asked a question about numbers dropping off from his youth ministry and wanting to know why and how do you keep it from happening and things like that. So since every youth ministry small group that you've led has dropped off in numbers,
We feel like you're more than
I
qualified,
figured
Dan.
you might be perfect.
That's perfect.
All right, Andy, here's something
Yeah,
for you.
that's going to be a tough one.
It says from Joe Foltz, why are the video episodes no longer posted? Why are some of the video episodes no
yeah.
longer posted?
We've never missed a video episode.
It says, why are some of them no longer posted? Like-
did they time out
Oh,
or
down at
something?
the very bottom, are they not?
Oh, it's probably just an iTunes cache thing would be my guess.
Yeah.
And
Well, you
iTunes
No,
is
iTunes
caching.
doesn't cache anything, though.
They cache the RSS feed.
Did
They
you change?
cache the RSS feed?
No, they don't.
They have.
Do they
something
PDF
does
that?
it.
No, all it does is point to the file.
All the feeds are still there. You can get all the shows directly from
Yeah.
our site.
All right,
Complete mystery.
great.
That's the brilliance of it. iTunes doesn't nothing store. All it does is store the link to where the file
Hey,
is.
I will
RSS
tell you,
file is.
Andy, a lot of the
But I
questions
could
that I
be wrong,
got,
too.
I got like
I don't
20
know.
questions this last week that are on marriage and,
Yeah.
and family. Did you guys hear the
Yes.
what me and
that's
Kathy
funny.
did
Yeah, we
this week? We were supposed to do the podcast yesterday, and she thought it was next week and had plans.
What's funny is because both of you always talk about calendar. Whenever you teach separately on marriage, like calendar is such
How
a.
many calendar lunches have you been to?
Me?
Doing summer calendar with the fields.
Oh.
Like
Countless.
3 times a year. You just don't get invited to those, Brazel, because you
I
can't.
have, like,
You
4
can't. You can't sell the calendars.
Uh,
But speaking of that, which is kind of a humility
You haven't?
train,
Yeah,
R-Dub's going
Oh.
to tell this story this weekend at church, so I don't feel.
yeah. When
I don't feel bad.
you say R-Dub, you mean Rick Warren.
Yes.
I'm reminded that we have an audience.
Yeah,
And
go
a
ahead.
senior pastor.
That's great.
Yeah.
If anybody didn't know who R-Dub was, will you please email him?
Email who?
Email.
Podcast
Just email it. Just Twitter it.
Just send it
This
to
is
anybody.
a short thing.
It's not even going to be
keep
worth
getting
it. I can
Yeah,
just
there's
feel it
no
right now.
way.
So,
Go ahead.
no,
No way
we're
this story
driving.
pays off.
We're
Okay.
driving. It's like 6:30 in the morning. We're driving to the airport place.
Because you're in Orlando with
The
Rick Warren
airport
this week.
place.
No, we
What
are.
is happening?
Yeah, there's no way this
Hurry,
story is.
hurry, hurry.
Holy smokes!
You're killing the show.
So we're in the car. We got to be at the airport at
People
6
are
in the
logging
morning.
off right now.
It's super early.
Because
so we
he
stopped to
loses
get
numbers and
breakfast
everything he
burritos.
does.
okay.
And the awesome thing is, so I'm hunched over like this, eating my breakfast burrito because I'm a slob and I don't want to be.
Yep.
Still get 3 drops of chorizo juice on my shirt,
Okay.
which is awesome. So Rick is doing an interview on the way there, and so
Like an interview on
a
the
phone interview. He's interviewing some magazine, or some magazine is interviewing him, and he's doing the interview. And so he takes
Now, are
the
you
phone.
driving the car or are you holding his stuff?
The phone to his ear.
Or are you feeding him?
Are you just eating your own?
I would have done any of those.
I know.
Were
Okay.
those apps. I mean, all
Go
the
ahead.
same things. All the same things that you had me do for you. For years. So he hands the phone. He hands the phone to Steve, and says, "Hey, can you turn the volume up on this? I can't hear it." And so then he takes the phone back, and he's talking to the guys. And one of the questions you can tell is, "How do you stay humble?" And he's like, "Well, we take God seriously. Don't take ourselves seriously. You can't. If you don't take yourself seriously, there's plenty of material. Blah blah blah." And he's like, "You know what? I still can't hear you." And so Steve looks forward and just goes, "Rick, you're holding the phone upside down." It was brilliant. So he starts laughing, and he turns the phone around. He's like, "Hey, I can hear you great now." And he's totally like, that's how you stay humble.
That's
It
awesome.
was so
amazing.
so
Good
funny.
timing, so good setup.
Yeah, all right. I apologize. The payoff totally was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good for you.
That's good.
Thank you for interrupting.
Do you have any other stories, real quick, before we get
I
on?
got plenty of stories.
Good ones.
This is
Oh, yeah, the
from
good ones though.
this is from Jason in Lincolnton, North All right, Jason, have no idea what your
Sorry.
question was.
Sorry.
For
Doesn't
for
matter.
those of you not watching and listening, Matt just grabbed it out of my hand, crumpled it up, and
destroyed
threw it.
Oh,
For no
idea.
reason at all.
But I was about to read that. Andy, here was his question. I'm going to just do that out of memory. It was a question.
Because you
prepped
prepped the podcast.
I did prep the
Yeah,
podcast.
so-
Want me to hold it?
Although I sent an email and a text to Josh and said, "Can you put them in my desk before you leave yesterday?" And he didn't either.
Well,
Oh,
some
man.
of us had to do
Too
some
bad we
pastoral
didn't.
things.
Too bad we didn't set them up electronically.
Too bad.
Okay.
Too bad.
So
I had a suicide call last night. On
he
Last
said,
night, after
Yes.
5.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
at
You were on MOD?
after hours. You are tonight.
MOD,
Have fun with
Minister
that.
of the Day.
I have
Um,
not got one after hours call.
He
Suicide
says,
last
at
night.
some point, I'm going to go through the spiritual habits with our youth, and I was wondering if you have anything to go along with PDYM for students.
Nope.
What?
And when do you
Yes.
think? And when do you think would be the best time to go through the PDYM principles? I was planning on doing it around the time school starts back up, or do you think it's too much for 7th graders coming up? Being their first study with me. I went through habits here, and it was hard for the middle schoolers to understand everything, but they still got the gist of everything.
Well, I think the
How
middle of
about
July is
student
the best
leadership?
time.
I was going to say the same thing. How about doing it in the middle of July?
Yeah, that's good.
Oh,
Oh, really?
Jana, nice transition there. Were you
Ooh.
actually
We
thinking?
were both thinking
Yeah.
that.
Okay, you were thinking.
very-
I
same.
thought you were thinking that's when attendance is low. Do it then in July.
No, I was helping a little segue there.
Because
Yeah.
our student leadership conference is in July.
It is.
Yeah.
I saw a sign. I can't believe we still have that many signups this early out. I just
very
think
I know, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
awesome. July. What are our dates?
The 15th through the
15th.
18th.
15th through the 18th
Oh,
of
pimp
July.
it.
Our student leadership conference.
That says PDYM.
But
Turn the phone around, Matt.
But I would teach at the beginning of the school year. Teach on the purposes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Get kids fired up. Here's why we exist. We're not a babysitting service. Here's what the church is about. Here's
Why
how
we
you can be a
do
part
what
of
we
it.
do.
Why we do what we do, and you is what we have called it before. Are there resources for like habits for the PDYM principles? Sure. The Life Together small group curriculum,
Living on purpose.
Living on Purpose,
Tons of sermon series. We have
sermon series, Why We Do What We Do in You, The Heart of a Champion. Is
Junior high growing you.
That's on habits, Andy.
That's discipleship. But it's for junior hires. He said he's having a hard time with the junior hires.
No, you missed the whole
Listening to
thing.
the question.
No, you weren't. Because he taught.
Although Growing You does have
But they do.
evangelism in it.
They do. I
It's
think
awesome.
they have a 5
Teach
purposes.
it in the fall is a great time to start it to answer his question, and it also made me think we didn't talk about our trip to Dallas. That when I say our, I mean mine. Since none of you
Yes.
wanted to go.
No, I wanted to go.
Well, we all wanted
I was
to.
signed up to
I
go.
text all day long to find out how it was going.
It was going great.
Yeah.
It was a great group of people.
Any live bloggers?
I don't know. I didn't ask that
Like
question.
Twitter?
Not many Twitter people there.
They don't know what
No twits,
Twitter
huh?
is in
Michael
Texas.
McMahon.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah,
Michael
he
McMahon?
twittered me a couple times, and in my reply section, and I met him at the very end of the day. I'd met him before. I remember meeting him somewhere, but very nice guy. But it was a great conference
Yeah.
in Dallas. We had Megan Hutchison went in Friday night and did the Life Hurts God Heals, and I came in on Saturday, and a lot of first time. It was just a classic, like an old school PDYM training. It was great.
We got a great email from a lady who said she's been in youth ministry for 10 years, and this was the most clear that she felt like she got an understanding of what she's doing, what she should do, a
Cool.
plan to do it, and that her volunteers were there.
Yeah.
And so she was just so stoked. It
Well,
was-
that's the key when you get your volunteers. And as this guy is asking, Jason's asking about even getting your student leaders on board, teaching them the purpose so they understand why you're doing what you're doing. We're doing it in Jacksonville in May,
Yep.
May 16th and 17th. We'd love to have you, pdymcommunity.com. Here's another question. This is a question from Kevin Batson from Fairhaven Church. I'm not sure where. I recently confronted my senior pastor about our student ministry structure. It is seriously broken. He told me 3 things. 1, don't quit, because I was about to. 2, write down your dream job description. 3, be aware of your blind spots, areas that I've screwed up upon. My thing hit your camera, didn't it, Andy?
Yes.
That was awesome.
That's impressive.
Says I have
He made
7
Lieutenant
years.
sit
I have 7 years under my belt as a middle school pastor, and I feel like it's time to step into the main leadership role and move the ministry forward and not in circles like it's been moving. Could you share with me some advice on how to live in this situation? There is currently someone in the main leadership role. Now, I'm not sure if the main leadership role is the student ministry pastor.
Basically, we're
Yeah.
talking about a coup.
Yeah, it's a revolution.
coup.
Viva la
How do
revolution.
you spell coup? Is there a P at the end of it?
Yes, C-O-U-P.
Yep.
But it's coup.
Coup.
It's French
Like
for shower.
Colbert. I saw a Colbert report last night for the first time.
Colbert's so
Ever?
For
amazing.
the first time.
Yeah, I never really watched it.
Oh,
even though
wow.
it's
He
He's
is
funny.
so.
I
brilliant.
I appreciate how he says the Colbert report, and he doesn't say the T at the end of report. Just killed me.
Yeah, it's funny.
That's good.
He was in
Did you write it
Philadelphia
with
last
somebody?
week. It was
I mean, watch it
every
with
night.
somebody?
Me and all the voices in my
Yeah.
head.
So Kevin, don't quit. Write down your dream. So I'm getting the impression that he's 7 years as a middle school
Yeah,
pastor. It's time to
paid
step
some
up.
dues, ready to move up to the student ministries position.
Yeah.
That's filled by someone else.
Yeah, somebody else is there.
Well, you
Awesome.
that guy's got to
Just
move up.
stick a knife in his back and go for it.
Yep.
Well, the
That's
first
it.
thing I thought about in this, and when I read this first time, is I thought about, Kurt Johnston in being our, junior high pastor for so many years, and that when I took over life development, so for the guy that asks, what do I do? What do I do, Gianna? I oversee, quote unquote, children's, youth, and college, and preach about half the time and oversee the future. No, I don't do it. Man, what are you doing?
You
He's
preach half
playing
the
with
time?
I'm
snowball.
supposed to.
What are you supposed to?
Don't.
Yeah,
no
man.
play.
I'm good. I'm totally focused.
Yeah. So you work hard,
No, I don't. But
you got moved up.
I was
one of
thinking
your-
about Kurt in this situation because at the time came when I took on more responsibility. Kurt was right there to step in, but didn't want to change. He said to me, I'll take it as long as I can still do junior high.
Still want to be the junior high guy.
And so, but there's a part of me that's thrown off a little bit with what Jason's asking about because part of me doesn't understand whether he wants to do something other than middle school or wants a more executive leadership position.
Yeah,
But
so
let's
what is the actual question?
well, let's phrase it in the sense so that anybody listening to that's frustrated in their situation, they can't
Thank you for bringing
feel-
that circle the wagons. Come
they
on.
can't feel like they
50,000
can
feet.
bring about change in
No.
the situation that they're doing. His pastor says, "Don't quit. Write down your dream job description. Be aware of your blind
By
spots."
the way, you could be a moron.
What do you do in that situation?
Well, probably do the 3 things he asked you to do.
Don't quit. Well, that's when I read this, I thought, when a senior pastor says, "Write down your dream job description," and he says, "Don't quit," man, I would walk through that door quickly.
yeah.
Going,
Run.
okay,
Go
because
on.
if
That's awesome.
he's being honest, he wants him there,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
that
great
seems very
sign.
affirming.
and he wants him fulfilled. So write down your dream job description. Doesn't mean you're going to get your dream job
But
description.
he's willing to listen.
You know,
You have an
And yet
audience.
the senior pastor is gentle enough to say, "Hey, don't worry, you got some blind spots."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
But what do you do when you're in this situation where you feel like you want to impact and affect leadership, but you're stuck at a level where you're removed from that?
Well, I think it's so hard, and I think this is one of the journeys I'm on right now, the last 2-3 years of my life with God, is that, to balance frustration and calling is just a difficult thing. I mean, if you're called to something, then no amount of frustration will take you from that. But yet, how do you know you're called to something when there's, it's not a verse that says. So, it's a really personal thing, and frustration's a really personal thing. And when is there too much frustration? I mean, to me, it's a difficult discernment. And I think a lot of times you go with what's easier or with what's a better job or with what has more influence. I mean, a lot of times it's like, well, what expands my vineyard, which is just a horrible book, but not a book. I'm sure the guy's great. But, but just this idea that, okay, so that's the measure of your life. What's the biggest territory? I mean, maybe it is. It's just a difficult...
Or don't you think the easier out is what will get me out of this current frustration?
No, but
Well,
that's,
I was
but
gonna
that's
say,
what I'm
isn't there
saying.
a-
There's a thing where suffering is sometimes a part of life.
There's a merit to being faithful too. Of like, if God's placed you here and you feel called here, and maybe it's not your season for greater leadership yet.
I mean,
Like
what do we
pay your
teach? What do we
dues.
teach people about pain?
No, not
Your
even just
hands
that.
on fire. You're not. The best thing is not how do I get out of this, but what is God doing in my life? in this, through this.
No, put the fire out. That's what it is. If your hand's on fire.
You were
And
trying to go
that's-
for a different metaphor.
No, that's exactly what.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, that's horrible. You just keep repeating your mistakes over and over again. You know.
I'm with Josh. With my hands on
Yeah.
fire, I'm
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Literally,
gonna-
if my hand's on fire too, I'm getting my hand. I'm not talking about literally.
Yeah.
So if a metaphoric hand was in the fire, a metaphoric fire.
Yeah.
And the
if-
metaphor didn't involve pain.
Then
Well, if
you
my
should
hand's on
seek
fire,
a
I wouldn't be
promotion.
in pain, but
and-
yeah.
no.
Well, think about you know when we talk about the frustration in calling, it
Silly.
is when I think about the last 15 years of my life being at one church, how many seasons have I experienced pretty intense frustration with something, not just short
Sure.
frustration, but you guys have been around long enough to journey
Sure.
with me on that, long-term frustrations that you go, sometimes the easiest out is you start flirting with those phone calls that are coming in about other opportunities and
Yeah, grass is always greener mentality. But I think it's a difficult thing, and I think at the end of the day, all you can really do is say, here's the boundaries. Here, let's frame the discussion. And I don't necessarily think calling and level of frustration are the only two boundaries, but I think with that, if you hate life for 6 months and you're doing everything you can to walk with God and to change your situation and to be faithful,
And there's no good days.
yeah, there's no good days after 6 months. I'm just throwing 6 months out there. That seems tough to me, like that God would put you in a position. But at the same time, people have lived great, powerful lives suffering for what God has called them to do. But they've always been able to balance their suffering against the call. Well, I'm called to do this, so I'm going to endure whatever.
But I think there's also an element of like being released too. Like I feel like for me in
Right.
ministry, I feel sure of my calling. I haven't always had that opportunity. There's been seasons of opportunity. So there's been seasons of frustration. But in that season of frustration, I don't feel like I've been released to whatever, you
Right,
know?
yeah.
So
Totally. Call and release. That's
catch and release.
catch and release.
Yes, so youth ministry is a lot like fishing. Yeah.
bass
You
fishing.
put your hand in the fish. If the fish is on fire.
If it's on fire, pull
Yeah,
it out.
this is one of those things when I think of like Kevin's question is that, without in 6 lines here, it's
Just
hard to
climb the
totally
ladder,
know
baby.
context.
Sure.
And sometimes we give out quick band-aids of something that requires
And what is
surgery.
his exact question? Because we made it general for what about structural pain?
Could you
and
share with me
ministry
some advice on how to live in this situation? Basically, he wants to be the guy, whatever the guy is in that setting, to bring about change. How do you live when you're not the guy?
I think you continue to ask yourself though, why do you want to be the guy?
I was just going to say.
Why do you wanna be the
You've got
guy?
to start with your own motives. And I know that motives are a difficult thing to figure out. And they're
Okay, but
always
what if
mixed.
he's just like you? What if he says, like you've said, I could run Saddleback Church. Even
Were you drunk, or what was the...
Yeah. No,
I
I've
think you
never
could.
said
I
it.
think you could,
I
too,
haven't
on
said
that
it like that.
oh, okay.
Oh, where's my lip? Totally. Yeah. It's
But
a
you have
tough-
to be satisfied with the calling and the placement that God's given you at this time. And
But
it's not to run the church.
ability is not always the best. Yet could he run it? Yeah, maybe. Could you be the point guy? Yeah, maybe. But why do you want to be the point guy?
Yeah.
Right.
What is
Exactly.
I think people wait too long to become the leader. Like they wait to get appointed to be the leader, and then they will be then they'll be a
So
good
most,
leader.
But the-
you're saying most people lack like that drive and ambition.
If people had the drive and ambition, they would be promoted to be the leader, and they
See,
would
but
become
I
a leader.
think
But instead, they kind of settle for mediocrity, saying, "Oh, as soon as I get to be a leader, then I'll really step up." And I'm
But
saying,
see, I think there's leadership right where you are.
and wherever you are, you can always find.
There
a way
is
to lead.
leadership opportunity right where you are. There is influence opportunity, change opportunity right where you are.
And when you seize that, I think that's when promotions. That's when moving up the ladder. I think that's when recognition
Career
often will come.
pathing.
I mean, if you lead from the lowest spot, if you lead people and you serve people and if you work hard, that will be recognized.
Yeah, and in this kind of situation, what I would say is that I would take my pastor up on creating my dream job. Because for
Yes.
me, my dream job has not always been to rise up to a different, my dream job has not been to be a senior pastor or an executive pastor or somebody
Right.
running the show. For me, the dream job is the freedom to use my gifts in a way that I'm using them the majority of the time rather than the minority of the time. So maybe for a general answer to all of us, if you get that opportunity to
Yeah.
go, okay, what is it that if I could write my dream job description, what would I do? And it may not be that,
But
that
do you
higher
think-
end, hierarchical end of leadership.
Do you think Moses in the desert for 40 years was his ideal job description?
Compared to what he had done in the past?
Yeah. Compared to being trained for upper echelons of leadership in great country?
No, I don't think that was his ideal. As much complaining and whining as he did and they
Right.
did.
He
No.
fought it all along the way.
Yeah.
But that's what God had for him, and he ended up being a great leader.
Yeah, so that's where
But
I
that's
think
not. I don't.
I think that but
Go ahead.
I think that sort of frustration, whatever that was, I mean, I don't want to read into the scripture, but guys leading in Egypt, groomed for leadership, and now he's got like sheep, and a wife, which is great.
And
got
he put
married.
his hand in the burning bush, apparently, and it was not burned.
No.
But he's not saying that there still is wisdom to go and put your dream job.
Well, I
if
like
somebody's
that.
going to
There
listen
is.
to you,
I like that.
Totally
and if your
is.
senior pastor is opening that door, you'd be silly not to go and
That-
do
and
it
right,
and
and
take
and
it.
that-
it lets them
yes.
know that, hey, when this position's available, or if we reorg, this is what I would love. It's good to
Well,
make
it's
people
insight
above
into
you
your
aware.
heart. It's insight into who
Sure. Yeah.
into how you perceive yourself, even a little bit. So
Andy, what was your giggle about over there? Somebody in the live show?
I said Moses was preparing for regional campuses.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Moses was
Whoever
preparing
said
for
that
regional
was
campuses.
excellent.
Very funny, Brandon Schmidt.
Brandon Schmidt, nicely
Brandon,
done.
good
Yes.
job.
Hey,
Good
Andy,
dude.
here's
I'm going to give Brazel the rock on that in
But
honor
it-
of
but
giving
it's
it
for
to
him.
you,
Yeah.
Brandon.
passing it on.
Here we go.
This is from Nick R. It says, Andy, you used to send out an email before every live podcast. What happened?
Oh, Doug's been twittering.
Oh,
So
Slackabelly
Is
Jones.
Andy too busy counting money and trying to be funny?
oh,
Oh,
That's a double. That's a
wow.
double.
That was a double.
Counting
yeah.
money and trying to be
Yeah,
funny.
I mean, people who sign up for the email list, why don't we do that?
We did an experiment last week.
Yeah.
Up until last week, we sent one every week.
Yeah,
We did it in the main newsletter and just through Twitter and blogs.
Yeah.
To see what the response would be.
yeah. You gotta.
oh, nice.
And we had the same
Like,
amount of
You,
people.
you can't block my shots, Andy, because I'm gonna run over and knock the camera down. Okay.
No, you won't. Because then you'll have to
just,
buy it.
just the fact that I hit it once. is
You
gonna-
break it, you buy it.
Okay, that's fine.
I think he probably already owns
Yeah,
it.
he probably already bought it.
Whatever.
That's right.
Somehow.
We've talked about
Okay,
what
well,
matters
so
most
maybe
many
if
times.
people put in the thing about the podcast, they ought to get an email.
What if they Twitter?
Perhaps.
But what if they don't? What if
Well, we
they?
put it on the blog and we had it in the main newsletter. It was an experiment.
So do we want to quit experimenting? Just give people information. They want to know on the podcast.
It was in the main newsletter that
The show
is
will be
happening
live.
today.
People already
Yeah.
think that you fix polls and stuff like that. Because here's one from David Morris. He says, just got a chance to sit down and watch podcast 74. Since Jason Underwood
Oh, you're a little behind because we're on 76 today.
has made the podcast a few times since the live show in Cincinnati, I figured I could get an email squeezed in between now and next year. Apparently, Jason has already been considered the front runner for the second live podcast.
Wait a
Remember,
minute.
this is the guy that
If we're
competed.
pimping the student leadership thing, that means the student leadership conference is a prostitute.
It says PDYM.
Oh gosh.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. That was so random.
I'm sorry.
I took. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk anymore.
Welcome back to
You
the
should
show,
take off your
everybody.
microphone.
Yeah, man.
And we're back.
What was that part of a couple weeks ago you said, I'm going to work on trying not to interrupt you?
How sweet would it be if we just made Matt sit there and every time he wanted to say something,
Yeah.
I'm going silent for the podcast.
going black?
I give him 3 minutes.
He says, apparently there's a
get
rumor
email.
that the vote was fixed for
Wow.
between David and Jason.
Oh.
Much like the voting for how long should the podcast be poll. No. Has anything been fixed other than
never
you
fixed
trying to?
anything.
You're trying to fix you're trying to win the Twitter
I will
thing.
buy people's Twitter followers for you. Yes.
You will buy
I will
followers.
pay them out of my own pocket to follow you. On
Okay,
Twitter.
but you're at least opening up that.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, he's gonna have to pay for it either way. Either you give money to Ruth
Yeah.
Chris, or
Or
you
I
give
have
money.
to listen to it for the next 76 shows.
All right, so there's no
So there's
poll rigging.
76 more shows.
I'm not gonna.
Uh-oh.
I'm not.
Oh,
gonna
it's on
camera
now.
What
down.
is going on today? Have a
He's
drink.
gonna knock the camera over.
Yeah, don't block my. Nate from Georgia
That was not
says,
gonna
You played
hit the
basketball?
camera.
That was impressive.
Did.
Yeah.
Doug, in all your vast years of student ministry, what has been your experience having your wife and kids on trips, and what was your policy with paying for them? Church pay, you pay. What has been your experience?
Oh, that's a good question.
Nate, and actually, this could be one that Kathy and I, could talk about too, with the marriage one. Which are we gonna do that next week, Andy?
Thursday, man.
Thursday next week.
Straight.
All right, we'll get our time straight.
So
Yes, Nate, I would always, when Kathy goes, the church always paid just like any other volunteer leader. Now, when the kids went, usually I would talk to the camp people about not charging for the kids. But if they did have to go, I'd take it out of the church budget. Or I'd probably ask about it first.
Not if they did have to go, if they did have to pay.
If they did have to pay, I'd ask if it could go, just to say, hey, that's one of the, if Josh goes to summer camp this summer and takes his family and we got to pay for
It's
his
like
kids.
half our budget, though, 'cause he has,
absolutely.
like,
He's
100
got a
kids.
homeschool cult. So yeah, Nate, that's what I would do. Here's the big principle for everybody: is family always wins on this. And people say, okay, how have your kids survived in a youth pastor family? 19, 16, 13 years old. And my thing is, family always wins. I wanted it to be a privilege that my kids grew up when Dad was a youth pastor. And so if you create that privilege, we've been doing that with Josh's kids on the weekend.
that's been
When
super.
I speak in big church and Josh MCs, he brings his kids backstage
And they love it. They feel like celebrities. I mean, it's fun.
They get the best treats ever.
They do.
They
We
do.
sugar them up like crazy.
Yeah. And now let's be totally gut level honest.
Yeah.
Are they loud? Yeah. Are
Oh,
they
yeah.
wild?
Do
Absolutely.
they put Cheeto fingers on your jeans right before you go on stage?
Yeah, right
Yes.
before I'm about to speak, I have to kind of keep them
Love you
back.
guys. Yeah.
Hold
yeah.
their heads.
Are they messy? Yes. Not as messy as they were when they threw up in my house. Super
true
Bowl
story,
Sunday, whatever
yeah.
that was.
Broke Jeff Matt's couch.
No, they
That was
didn't break
Josh.
Matt's couch.
It was an
Josh did.
accident, first of all.
But
That
I
couch
love
was
it.
Very poorly made.
I love it when they're back there, when they're backstage,
Oh.
because they know that And one time, a couple weeks ago, you took them out on stage with
yeah,
you. And
yeah, right on stage. It was
I
hilarious.
love that whole idea that a ministry kid grows up with perks.
Right.
I just love it, because I think there are so many times that Wednesday night when I left to go do the baptism at 9:00 for Life Hurts, God Heals, I didn't put my kids to bed.
Exactly.
So there was a loss. Now it's kind of tough to put Tori to bed at college, but
Oh, that's awesome. Here it
the
goes.
chances of
Let's
me
be neutral.
seriously, the chances of me hitting that twice in one show
Yeah,
are
no,
like
let's be honest.
1 in 300. Yeah, let's-
You pride yourself on this. That's
Ooh.
it's like 1 in 4.
Okay, somebody was at my house telling the story of you breaking Matt's couch, and so they go to my couch to do the same thing. Totally bows. Like, I was like,
No
oh!
way. The couch is super poorly made. Did we say this on the show? I don't
No,
think we did during the
I'm barely
pre-show.
even hearing the story. So is this
So
Taffy's
Matt's
party?
gone. Matt's in Orlando. We're at a party. Everything's great.
Oh, you
and
were
I'm leaning
gone.
on his couch, and we've been there like 2 minutes. Brand new couches, whatever, not too old, and it breaks.
Wow. How much do you weigh?
308.
308.
But the person telling the story at my house was not close to that, and it still was. And we
It's
got our
so-
couches from the
I
same
mean,
place.
And so then I looked, and it's a little flimsy bar. Apparently, you're
Yeah.
not supposed to sit on that side of the couch. You're supposed to sit on the padded
How
side.
mad was your wife?
But
She doesn't really get mad at stuff like that.
Yeah. But think about how many things that you broke at my house.
and vice versa.
3 things.
3 things? Come on.
Maybe 5.
Okay, put your microphone back on. Quit pouting.
I feel so bad. I
Put
feel
your
like I
mic-
need to punish myself.
Why?
Because I interrupted you in the middle of an email.
I know,
No,
but
the
Miguel,
interruption is not nearly as bad as the comment.
Why is that starting to make you feel
Because
bad?
3 weeks ago
We're
we
on
decided.
76 episodes,
I know, but
and
we
you
decided.
interrupted me every
Amazing.
episode. It was kind of like the burping thing. We said, man, try not to burp.
I know, and I don't burp anymore.
Oh, my gosh.
So Mish was cool with it. I'll send her a note. I apologize profusely that night. I could not believe that happened.
I think we got to ask
Misha's
people on the
totally
live
cool. Are you
podcast,
kidding me?
Andy, if they think Josh ought to pay for the couch.
Oh goodness.
Fair enough.
That's the couch we got reamed on. We got with Craigslist. So it's a couch that we bought.
It's a great story.
It
The
is a
story
great
that
story.
continues.
Mish.
I think Jana should go sit on it until she breaks her water.
So that there's another
Another story.
moment on that couch. Yes.
But,
They're saying now that he has the interim off, he can afford it.
Hey, we actually should revisit that probably. I tried to get a
The
serious.
tears are gone now, and he's ready to
now
talk
that I'm looking
business.
through
You
my
missed your
tears-
opportunity.
Yeah, I know. Technically, I haven't said yes though.
Yeah.
No one has actually asked me to.
no, your tears were yes. Your tears were.
You work
You know
at
what's
Saddleback.
funny?
You don't
Yeah,
sign
you
any
don't-
agreement
you don't
or
actually
anything
say
like
yes.
that.
Yeah, it's over.
That's funny. There was actually a part of me that thought you didn't want it,
Yeah.
which I did not say to Rick, even though I thought there's a part of me that thinks that Josh, wants to do this for a year or 2 years, and
Yeah.
Josh is the man.
well, no,
He's-
there's no
he's
doubt. It's
killing.
not a question of results, faithfulness, any of that. It's just I just thought
You guys
your
are very
heart.
nice.
Your
Yeah.
heart.
Your-
Like your
I
heart's going
thought-
to shrivel
Desire.
up.
No,
I know I'm carrying a
didn't
little
think-
extra weight, but really.
I thought that there was a large chance,
No pun
40%
intended.
You're like,
chance
yeah, wait a minute.
that you didn't want the job full term, long term.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
vibe
you don't know
I
what
got.
long term means to him compared to you. You know what I
No,
mean?
Josh is there for long.
I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I would
great.
definitely say I have come to terms with that and wrestled with it and prayed about it a ton. And
Yeah.
and honestly, the family thing, you talk about missing kids in bed. I've missed 3 out of 7. That's bad for me. But I'm in.
But you're loving it. Like
loving
not,
every minute
you're-
of it. It's super challenging, super fun.
Yeah, totally.
Love the
Talk
team.
about challenging.
Killer volunteers,
when-
great results.
When we move into the new building,
Oh.
baby.
It was.
Dude,
We had a
Congratulations again on your victory for the staff on that.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
awesome.
We had a great conversation with a guy about building stuff, because we just feel like we so need to learn from other people.
This is Bubba in
Yeah,
Texas.
Yeah.
419.
And
Yeah.
Lake
it was
Point Church.
pretty
We had a
funny
phone
because
conference
he was really honest about some of the downsides, and he probably felt like every answer to our question was negative. But at the end of the conversation, he was like, "It's the greatest blessing. It's a huge blessing. It'll be so exciting
That's
for you
So
guys."
he's still rocking that
So
place, huh?
yeah, they just celebrated 5 years in their building. So they
Neat.
did a little new celebration thing for 5 years, and
Cool.
yeah, so it's cool.
That's
That's
great.
crazy.
There's a question from Joe Zier. He says, "Hey, award-winning podcasters." Ooh, this is Kathy.
Podcast not today.
Today, I gotta ignore it. I'm gonna ignore it.
I'm gonna check with Kathy.
You got a missed call.
She
from
calls you
Kathy on
next.
there.
Dear award-winning podcasters, I take our group to a camp that one of our sister churches puts on. The camp is the last week of June. The camp directors asked me to be in charge of activities and games. There'll be 200 to 250 junior high and senior high students at the camp. What are you doing?
Calling Kathy.
So this is. You felt bad about interrupting a little bit earlier, but
And they're killing you for family first.
yeah, well.
Oh,
I'm gonna go check I gotta go check my kids in bed, guys. I'll see you later. I know it's 3 o'clock. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Crap.
I was going to answer, but I thought to myself, if I answer, McGill will answer
Yeah.
every time somebody calls.
I only answer when Meech calls.
Yeah.
I don't bring
And
my
that
phone
one
in.
time
It just
I was
feels...
waiting for the whole star system to align, and it did, and I needed the answer.
Hey, here's what I thought about for his ask for games. This probably isn't the right.
I didn't hear
Did
the
we finish the
question.
question?
He wants game ideas for
Oh.
best camp games. But here's what it made me think of. Do we not have anything on our website where we could move from something like this into a chat room and then say, hey, those of you listening, go to Simply Youth Ministry chat room /games and
Or it's called a blog.
Or forum. Well,
Forum.
you have
Or
a
what
chat
about
going
the
right
ideas
now, though.
books?
Or Les? Doesn't Les Christie do games?
Well, there's a million.
Groups got some.
No, there's a million
Yeah.
game books. There's a million things out there.
Why-
I don't necessarily
So
think
you're just
this
saying
is
for discussion.
this
not-
is a place to
yeah.
discuss, ideas, because we would come up with those games where you pass the apples, back and forth.
Oh,
You know which game I was with? I was with
Sweet
Eddie James yesterday
baby.
from the Skit Guys, Eddie and Tommy, and I was telling him, when Eddie used to be on staff years ago, my favorite game that I made up on the spot, the spatula game. You remember the wooden
oh,
spatula?
that's a great game.
You know this game,
Uh-uh.
Josh? Oh gosh.
Oh,
It is so funny.
Awesome.
We take a guy and we'd put a
wooden spatula in his
spatula in the girl's mouth,
Yeah.
and the girl would have to bring her head back like this and then hit the kid on the top of the head with the spatula.
Yeah.
And we had him do it one time with a guy, and then we would blindfold another guy.
Oh, that's
And so
awesome.
once the guy was blindfolded, I would take the
take it out?
spatula and smack him on the
Oh,
head with
that's
it.
awesome.
Oh gosh,
That is.
you could only do it
awesome.
once a year because everybody knew what was coming after a while. But it was a great
Love
day.
it.
so everybody was Steve, who's like Rick's assistant, was telling Dave, "Ask Rick. You got to play Gestapo. You got to play Gestapo." And so Green, this guy, keeps saying to Rick 2 or 3 days in a row, "Let's play Gestapo." So finally, on the last night, Rick's like, "You want to play Gestapo? Okay." So he says, "Green, we play it like this." And so they look at each other, and he uses a Russian accent, which I can't do. He says, "Tell me your name."
So Rick Warren is doing this.
Rick Warren is
Oh,
doing this.
goodness.
And so Dave Green goes, "Dave Green," and he goes, "Liar!" and smacks him in the face.
No way.
It was so funny. So he asks him another question. He goes, "Liar!" Hits him in the face 3 times. It was
And
so-
hard hits him in the
Oh
face.
yeah, it was so funny. It was awesome. I mean, it was over the top.
That's funny. So
That's
Andy, what's
awesome.
our answer for this?
SimplyYouthMinistry.com/forums.
SimplyYouthMinistry.com/forums
Yeah.
games.
You should start it right there.
Nice fake.
Oh, look at
was a
that.
get. Oh.
Ooh, close.
Taking candy from the baby.
But
It's like sticking your hand in the fire and getting burned,
Ugh.
But not taking it out.
but not getting burned. Or
All right,
Moses.
here's a question from Michael. Don't know where. Michael Wilson.
Ding.
He says, "Hey, Andy and friends."
Wait, yeah. Did you have that in
Andy,
the
why
main
don't you
newsletter
put on
too?
a microphone?
No, but this is the best.
Andy could sit in Jana's seat.
Yeah.
His church is deteriorating. Okay, splitting. There's a lot of tension. The whole bit. He says he's gotten extremely close to some kids, and he's not going to be kept on. He says it's tearing my heart up because I can't tell them yet, and I don't want to leave them. I want to do what's best for the kingdom of God and allow the new church to flourish, but I still absolutely love my kids. Plus, I won't be leaving the church. I'll either be moving overseas or 1,000 miles away. What level of relationships do I maintain with the students as I leave? Should I hold on to the very end or move before the transition is over? How should I break the news to them?
Good question.
Yeah, these are tough because there's no one right one with that context. At what level of relationship do you maintain with the students as you leave? What you maintain whatever level of relationship that you have with them. If you have a great relationship with them, you maintain that great relationship with them. If you don't have a relationship with them, you were their former, youth pastor.
Brazel's chuckling over there.
Why?
Maybe on the leadership and they'll want to punch the new guy in the face.
Should I hold on to the very end or move before the transition is over? I mean, I think as soon as word gets out,
Yeah. Lame duck.
You're starting your transition, and
Yep.
how should I break the news to them? We've said this before. There's never a good time to, you're not the first youth pastor to leave. You won't be the last. There's never a good time to tell kids, especially if it's a good situation. They're going to be sad that you're leaving.
Sure.
You want to encourage them that last shot to, remain faithful. That they were.
Is his replacement on the scene?
It doesn't say. But you want to encourage them to continue to grow spiritually without you there.
If the replacement's around, I think it's a good idea. You tell them as early as possible, and you and the replacement are buddies.
And you make the handoff.
You make the handoff as
Right.
healthy as possible.
I think when you're 1,000 miles away, it's really difficult to disciple and care for students. So that has to be handed off to the next youth worker.
Right.
But there can still be a relationship.
Sure.
It just can't be the either the focused spiritual relationship in their life.
Or undercutting what the
And
person.
you really can't undercut the
Yeah.
next person.
But like when you moved out here
Right.
from Michigan, I know you kept in contact with
Absolutely.
kids. When they would come out, they would visit.
Yeah.
You did weddings for them.
I just got an invitation last week to go to Colorado, Colorado, and do another wedding. And one of our staff is actually back at his college, and one of my students is at that college. So I said, make sure to tell her hi. And
Yep.
so I think there's some relationships, but there's not. We've tried to hand it off
Yeah.
to the next youth ministry. If you really care about your students, don't hold on to those relationships for dear life as a sign of your success.
Yeah.
Hand them off and help them to grow with the next person.
that there's really never a good time to
No,
leave.
and it's not easy.
Or just fake it all the way up to the end and then just disappear.
Throw down a smoke pellet and run.
That's
Hey,
the
here was
ninja-
a-
That's like the X-Files.
There was an
Exactly.
email sent in from a senior in high school. He says he's
Oh, we don't need to listen to them.
Yeah, they're on their way out.
um,
Go to the simplycollegeministry.com show.
senior in high school in San Diego and listened to the show while doing homework. And
Well, that's horrible for two reasons.
he says he's listening to the show, and my dad comes in and starts yelling at me, why am I listening to music that keeps using the F word?
Whoa.
And I'm really confused by what he's saying, trying to explain that it's an internet radio show. He's not very technologically hip to know what a podcast is. And they definitely do not use the F word. I played back the bumper music for him again, and he realized it was actually saying podcast. But if you listen to it, though, I realize it does kind of sound like it says F yeah over and over again. What is our theme song?
Podcast.
Isn't that the one? It doesn't sound a lot like.
That was
yeah.
good, Jenna.
That was.
Yeah, but it made me think of when I
I
was
don't know, backwards masking.
when I was his age.
Yeah, play it backwards. It's probably the devil's intro music.
Disco music. When I was in high school, there was a song that came out, I think from the
Oh,
Bee Gees,
golly.
that was "More Than a Woman." More than a woman. I
Yeah.
used to skate to that.
Roller skate.
Roller skate.
Roller skate.
Yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
But I used to think it was "Bald-Headed Woman." Go download that on iTunes
Oh, wow.
and think to yourself, "Bald-headed
Bald-headed
woman," and
woman.
you can. Bald-headed woman.
That's
That's
amazing.
funny.
I'm sure that was
There's a website that's filled with those.
really.
Yeah.
Andy, I'm knocking the camera down if you try to block it.
That's how we're ending the show
just
today.
tried
He's
to block it.
knocking
Next week. I'm
What are
give him
you
this week
trying
free.
to do?
This says David Odell from Seattle says titled "Josh
Oh,
carries
Seattle.
the show."
Oh, goodness.
It
Starting-
snowed there last weekend.
No
Starting
longer
at-
the interim podcaster.
Starting at about episode 68 or 69, Josh suddenly began adding both content and humor at a level
Oh.
previously unseen.
Only 70 shows in.
Well,
guys.
you know
That's
what,
when you got your real job.
Hey, you're right.
Well, this is that type of thing like when I speak in church and people go, "That was the best message you've ever given." Like they have this, whole backlog
Yes.
and they're keeping scores, and
Yep.
that kind of reminds me of this right here. He says, I assumed
So
his
you're calling this
increased...
guy foolish?
No, I'm just saying he's probably not accurate. I assumed his increased level of input was a result of him becoming the high school
Oh, see?
pastor.
Whoa.
And now
Yeah,
that he was
wow.
actually doing ministry, he had something
Whoa!
to contribute.
Oh.
This lasted until episode 73 when for some reason he transferred all of his focus to pimping his blog. Not sure if there was a connection, but it was also around episode
that pimp word
73
again.
when Jana began her Jackal impersonations.
Jackal.
Terrible.
Wow.
woman.
Oh, with the rebound.
All right.
Thank you for that. That was
All right,
very nice.
we got
Silly.
and you know what? How about one more? Let's end on a suicide question.
Because that's how life ends for a lot of people.
Jeremy Pinson at Broadway Assembly in Lorain, Ohio. I've had a student threatening suicide lately. I heard through his best friend who he confided that information to. How do I handle this? I've started texting him and talking to him as much as possible without seeming weird. I'm trying to set up a meeting with our pastor. We're a smaller church. I've been praying for him, and we're going out this Friday for lunch. Is there something else I should be doing?
We got 1 minute to answer this question.
All right.
Easy. Go.
Well, I would tell Jeremy, you don't text and you don't beat around the bush. You go right after him.
Yeah.
You don't
Yes.
mess with this. You go, even if you have to betray the best friend, because you'd rather betray the best friend than, find this poor kid taking his life and go, oh, maybe I should have called him instead of texted him. So the fact that you're going out to lunch, hopefully today, it sounds like,
Right.
that you're very confrontive with him, and
Call him, text him, if necessary. Report the authorities if it's
absolutely
impending,
absolutely. If you
legitimate.
you just
absolutely
don't
report
you
it.
don't mess with this.
A threshold with that is if there's a specific plan.
Exactly.
If there's a specific plan, then that is
If it's a passive frustration,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
can
if it's-
still take it seriously.
Well, you still have to report it.
Absolutely.
You still have to. You can't
but
take
if it's
light of it.
active with the plan, with details, you immediately drop everything because that's how it works.
even prepping the podcast like you
Yeah,
did.
I read a thing yesterday because I actually had a suicide caller in it, and they said if they have asked them a question that requires the truth, because they won't end their life on a lie. So say, are you going to leave here and kill yourself? They will say yes if they're serious, because they don't want to end their life on a lie. Never heard of that before. So
I wonder how much, if research documents that.
Yeah.
I just read it yesterday. I think we got to go, huh?
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay,
He said
we're
we have
about
1
to run
minute.
out of tape. Are we going to stick around for a couple
yeah.
minutes for 2 or
Live
3
show.
live show
Yes.
questions? Okay, 2 or 3 live show questions. Hey, everybody, we're going to put the Marriage and Family podcast on this.
Same feed, and then we'll have a new feed for it once we come up with a good name.
Okay.
All right.
Kathy and I are going to do a better
How
one.
often?
Better one than this?
Much
Won't
more.
take
Much more better
much
than
more.
Super
Much
Podcast.
more
Podcast,
better
yes.
than.
Goodbye, everybody.
We won't have Matt interrupting all the time.
See you next week.
How
Glad
often
you're
is
here.
the marriage podcast?
Daily. It's a daily show.
Daily.
That'd make a good
Last
name
time to
for
see
it.
For
Janet.
3
Last time to
days
see
in a
Janet.
row.
Baby.
Janet, stand up. Stand on the chair. Show that
Stand
belly.
on the chair.
Show
I
that
don't
belly.
have to
Come on.
stand. I don't have to.
Woo! Look at that.
Yes.
Wow. All right.
Baby Lola.
It's got just enough youth ministry so that you don't feel guilty listening.